Have you ever caught yourself comparing your life to someone else's? What if I told you that this seemingly harmless habit is slowly destroying your well-being? What is it about social comparison that makes it so addictive? And why does it leave us feeling empty, no matter how much we try to keep up? Stay with me, because what you don't know about the dark side of social comparison could completely change the way you view your life. The effects are more profound than you might think, leaving scars that we often don't even recognize. So, how deep does the rabbit hole really go? And what does it mean for you? Let's dive in and uncover the unsettling truth behind it all. Number 1. The allure of social comparison. Why we can't help ourselves. Have you ever looked at someone on social media and thought, I wish I had that life? What is it that pulls us into these comparisons, even when we know it can hurt? In this section, we'll explore the magnetic force that makes social comparison so irresistible. Why does it feel like we're constantly measuring ourselves against others? It turns out, this is deeply ingrained in human nature. We are wired to compare as a survival mechanism, constantly looking to others for cues about how to behave, how to feel, and whether we are enough. But here's the problem. Social comparison begins with a small spark of curiosity, but it quickly grows into a wildfire, consuming our self-esteem and peace of mind. You might not even realize how much it impacts you until it's too late. How does this work? When we compare ourselves to others, our brain releases dopamine, that feel-good chemical. So, for a split second, it feels rewarding. But, does it really help? No, in the long run, these comparisons only lead us to feel worse about ourselves. And the worst part? The more we compare, the more we want. We get trapped in a cycle of dissatisfaction, forever chasing something that never truly fulfills us. Now, let me ask you this. How many times have you compared yourself to someone on social media today? Can you remember what emotions you felt? Was it jealousy? Inspiration? Or maybe something deeper? Something darker? As we move forward, think about the ways this relentless habit has affected your own life. You might be shocked to realize just how deeply rooted social comparison is in your day-to-day thoughts and actions. Number 2. The hidden dangers. How constant comparison affects your mental health. Could your mental health be silently deteriorating because of social comparison? What if you're so used to comparing yourself that you don't even see the damage it's causing? In this section, we'll dive into the dangerous ripple effect social comparison has on our mental health. It's not just about fleeting feelings of envy or jealousy. The long-term effects are far more sinister, impacting everything from your self-worth to your happiness, and even your relationships. Think about it. When you constantly compare yourself to others, you're setting unrealistic standards for yourself. You're trying to measure your life against a version of reality that's often filtered, edited, and manipulated. And guess what? It's leaving you with a sense of inadequacy that doesn't go away. One of the most dangerous effects of social comparison is the anxiety it breeds. You may find yourself constantly worried about whether you're good enough or if you'll ever measure up. This self-doubt creeps in slowly but eventually takes over, leading to a lack of confidence and a negative self-image. But that's not all. Social comparison can also trigger depression. Research has shown that individuals who frequently compare themselves to others are more likely to experience feelings of sadness and despair. It's a vicious cycle. And what about the relationship between social comparison and burnout? You might push yourself harder, trying to catch up with others, only to burn out and feel completely drained. Ask yourself, have you ever caught yourself in the middle of a comparison, feeling a sense of dread creeping in? Have you ever thought, why can't I be like that? Or even worse, what's wrong with me? The emotional toll is real, and it's time to acknowledge it. But it gets even darker when we explore how social comparison can distort your sense of identity. Number 3. Identity crisis. How comparing yourself to others can leave you lost. What if I told you that constantly comparing yourself to others could make you lose sight of who you truly are? Ever felt like you don't even recognize yourself anymore because you're trying to fit into someone else's life? This section explores the identity crisis that can arise from relentless social comparison. When we constantly measure ourselves against others, we begin to lose our sense of self. We start adopting behaviors, beliefs, and values that aren't our own, just to fit into the mold that we think we should. You see, the more we compare, the more we mold ourselves into an image of what society, or social media, wants us to be. Over time, we forget what truly makes us unique. We forget what makes us happy, what drives us, and what we value most in life. Instead, we start chasing external validation and approval from others, rather than listening to our own inner voice. And guess what? This often leads to confusion and a deep sense of loss. You find yourself asking, "Who am I really? And why do I feel so disconnected from myself?" The deeper you get into this cycle, the harder it becomes to break free. Because your self-worth is no longer based on who you truly are, it's based on what others think of you. And that is a dangerous game to play. So, next time you find yourself comparing, stop and ask yourself, is this comparison bringing me closer to my true self? Or is it pushing me further away from who I really am? The unsettling truth is, the more you compare, the more you lose yourself. And that's a truth we all need to face. Number 4. The social media trap. How technology fuels our need to compare. Have you ever thought about how much time you spend scrolling through social media? What if I told you that this very habit is making your problem worse? How does technology make it so much easier to compare? And why does it leave us feeling even worse than before? In this section, we examine the role of social media in fueling our addiction to comparison. It's no secret that platforms like Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok are designed to keep us hooked. But what you might not realize is just how much these platforms are shaping our perceptions of reality. Social media doesn't show the full picture. It shows only the highlights, the perfectly curated moments of people's lives. We compare our real, unfiltered selves to the idealized versions of others, and it leaves us feeling like we are constantly coming up short. But it gets worse. Social media companies thrive on our need for validation, and they've perfected the art of triggering our dopamine responses to keep us engaged. Every time we get a like or a comment, we feel a fleeting sense of reward, but it's never enough. So, we keep scrolling, keep comparing, and keep chasing that high. Here's the real kicker. The more we use social media, the more we feed into the cycle of comparison. And the more we compare, the more miserable we become. Pause for a moment. Think about your last social media scroll. How did it make you feel? Inspired? Jealous? Or maybe empty inside? This is the trap, and it's set to keep you hooked. Now, let's talk about the impact on your overall well-being. Number 5. The emotional roller coaster. Why social comparison triggers extreme emotions. Why do we feel so much emotional turbulence when we compare ourselves to others? Have you ever felt exhilarated one minute and devastated the next, simply because of a single comparison? In this section, we explore the emotional roller coaster caused by social comparison. When we measure our lives against someone else's, we are often on a dangerous emotional seesaw. One moment we feel high, maybe because we think we've achieved something comparable to someone else. But the next moment, we feel low, as we realize just how far behind we are. The extreme emotions that come with social comparison, such as joy, jealousy, anger, or despair, are often short-lived and fleeting. They are the result of chasing external validation rather than building internal contentment. These emotional highs and lows are not sustainable, and they leave us feeling exhausted and overwhelmed. This constant emotional fluctuation can create a sense of instability in our lives, affecting everything from our mental health to our relationships. Why does this happen? When we compare, we are allowing external circumstances to dictate our emotional states. Our happiness depends on how we measure up, rather than on an internal sense of fulfillment. But why do we let this happen to ourselves? Why do we give others the power to define our emotions? The truth is that the more we allow comparison to control our emotions, the more we give up our own power. So, next time you're feeling emotionally drained from comparing yourself to someone else, stop and ask, is this comparison helping me grow, or is it just keeping me stuck in this emotional roller coaster? Number 6. The social comparison and perfectionism link. Why we can't stop striving for flawlessness. Why do we feel like we must be perfect? And why does social comparison push us into a perfectionist mindset? What happens when we chase perfection that we can never truly achieve? In this section, we look at the deep connection between social comparison and perfectionism. Social media culture feeds into the idea that perfection is not only possible, but expected. We look at influencers, celebrities, and even friends, and wonder why we don't measure up to their flawless lives. But here's the dangerous part. When you constantly compare yourself to these idealized versions of perfection, you begin to feel like nothing you do is ever good enough. No matter how hard you work, or how much you achieve, it never feels like enough. And this leads to an ongoing cycle of self-criticism and dissatisfaction. Perfectionism doesn't just affect your self-esteem, it can make you feel paralyzed. You fear making mistakes because they're seen as failures. The desire to appear perfect can prevent you from trying new things, taking risks, or even being yourself. But what happens when you take off the mask of perfection and embrace your authentic self? It's liberating. It's freeing. And it's the only way to break free from the chains of comparison. So, how much of your life has been driven by the desire for perfection? Have you ever taken a step back to realize that maybe, just maybe, perfect isn't the goal? Number 7. Comparison and self-worth. How your value gets tied to external validation. Do you believe your worth is tied to how others see you? When did your value become defined by someone else's life? How does social comparison distort your sense of self-worth? In this section, we'll discuss how social comparison can dangerously tie your self-worth to external factors. In today's world, we are often taught that our value is determined by how we stack up against others, whether that's in terms of success, appearance, popularity, or wealth. This mindset is dangerous. Why? Because it means that our sense of worth constantly fluctuates based on comparisons. When we compare ourselves to someone who seems to have it all, we feel inferior. But when we're doing better than someone else, we might feel a false sense of superiority. Either way, it's an unhealthy way to measure your self-worth. Real self-worth doesn't come from comparisons. It comes from within. It comes from knowing who you are, being proud of your journey, and accepting yourself for everything you've been through. When we tie our value to external validation, we become slaves to comparison. Our happiness, peace, and self-esteem are no longer in our hands, they're in the hands of others. So, here's the big question. Do you define your value by how you compare to others? Or have you found a way to embrace your worth as something deeper, something unshakable? Number 8. The impact on relationships. How social comparison creates distance and conflict. Have you noticed how social comparison affects your relationships with others? Why does it feel like we're constantly measuring up against our friends, partners, and even family members? And what happens when these comparisons cause more harm than good? In this section, we'll explore how social comparison doesn't just affect you, it impacts the people around you as well. Whether you realize it or not, comparing yourself to others can lead to misunderstandings, jealousy, and even resentment in your relationships. Imagine this. You constantly compare your success to your friends, and when they achieve something you haven't, you feel a sense of inferiority. On the flip side, when you accomplish something they haven't, they might feel envious or competitive. This cycle of comparison creates tension and distance, even in the closest of relationships. But the worst part is that these comparisons make it harder to celebrate other people's victories. Instead of being genuinely happy for a friend's success, you may find yourself feeling threatened or left behind. This creates negative emotions that can damage the relationship over time. So, here's the tough question. How many times has social comparison caused tension in your relationships? And can you imagine how freeing it would be to break free from that cycle, allowing yourself and others to thrive without comparison? Number 9. Breaking free. How to overcome the cycle of social comparison. What would it feel like to completely stop comparing yourself to others? Can you imagine living your life without the constant need to measure up? What's stopping you from breaking free from this cycle? In this section, we'll explore how you can break the toxic cycle of social comparison. It's easier said than done, but it's not impossible. The first step is to recognize that you don't have to measure your worth against someone else's life. The only person you need to compare yourself to is the person you were yesterday. Start by cultivating self-awareness. Recognize when you're about to compare yourself to others and pause. Take a step back and ask yourself, why am I doing this? How does this comparison serve me? By questioning the habit of comparison, you can begin to detach yourself from it. Another key strategy is to focus on gratitude. Instead of looking at what others have, look at what you have in your own life. Practice daily gratitude and acknowledge the progress you've made. This shift in focus will allow you to stop feeling like you're falling behind. Finally, make time to invest in yourself. Build your self-esteem from within. Set goals that are meaningful to you, based on your values, not someone else's. Embrace your uniqueness, and learn to love yourself for who you truly are. Breaking free from the cycle of social comparison requires patience and consistency. It's about learning to love yourself in all your imperfections. So, think about it. How different would your life be if you stopped comparing yourself to everyone around you? Imagine the freedom you could experience by focusing solely on your own journey. Number 10. Embracing your own journey. Finding peace without comparison. Do you ever feel like you're running a race that isn't even yours? What if, instead of trying to win against everyone else, you could find peace by embracing your own journey? Could that be the key to true happiness? In this final section, we'll explore how embracing your own unique path leads to lasting peace and fulfillment. The truth is, life is not a competition. It's a personal journey. We all have different experiences, backgrounds, and timelines, and that's okay. By embracing your own story, you free yourself from the constant comparison trap. Instead of focusing on where others are, focus on where you are and where you want to go. Appreciate the progress you've made, even if it feels slow or insignificant. Every step forward is a victory. Imagine a life where you are content with your own journey. You no longer need to measure yourself against others, because you know that your path is your own, and that's more than enough. This shift in mindset doesn't happen overnight, but when you begin to see your worth beyond comparison, something magical happens. You start to feel a deep sense of peace. The anxiety, jealousy, and envy fade away, replaced by a sense of calm and fulfillment. So, what if the greatest secret to happiness is accepting yourself as you are? Can you imagine what it would be like to stop chasing someone else's dream and start living your own? This is your life, your journey, and it's time to embrace it, without comparison. As we wrap up this video, I want you to ask yourself, where would you be if you stopped comparing yourself to others today? Are you ready to embrace your own journey and find peace in being yourself? Conclusion and call to action. So, what's the takeaway here? Social comparison is a trap. It leads to mental health issues, emotional instability, identity confusion, and relational strife. It keeps you in a constant state of dissatisfaction, leaving you feeling like you're never enough. But it doesn't have to be this way. By recognizing the dangers of social comparison and committing to breaking the cycle, you can reclaim your happiness and peace. You can start by embracing your own unique journey, focusing on personal growth, and practicing gratitude for the life you already have. If you found this video helpful, take a moment to reflect. How have comparisons shaped your life? And what changes can you start making today to break free from the cycle? I encourage you to subscribe for more content like this, where we dive deep into how to live a more fulfilled, authentic life. Leave a comment below and let me know how social comparison has impacted you. And remember, your journey is your own, so stop comparing and start living. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.